Spring ball at Ohio State has sprung, and snap judgments are back, baby. That's Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. We are in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, and it was amazing to be back.
It was an interesting post-practice for Ryan Day. I thought more like verbose than we've heard him be in a long time. Maybe he actually missed talking to the media over the last 2.5 months because
we tried to tell him.
He was talking quite a bit, a lot of good information, a lot of information, but for practice number one, like just trying to get to know who the heck we're looking at out here. As we said on the live show, like this is the first time in 15 years I'm going to have to actually look at a roster, going through and going, okay, who's that guy? Who's that guy? But there were certainly a number of head turners as far as the guys that are new. There were certainly players that you look at and be like, that guy looks a little bit different. Edric Houston, Jeremiah Smith looked like he kind of thinned it down a little bit to me. Kenyatta Jackson, another guy, looked like they really spent the offseason trying to change the way their bodies looked a little bit. But overall, what we saw in the first hour was encouraging. I thought the offense looked fast. I thought that there were definitely players who we'll talk about over these next couple of days that you're like, that I can see how that works. And interesting day.
Yeah, I think interesting is a word for it. You know, Ryan Day was sort of asked about that again with 51 new players. And does he know? Yes, he knows every name, but like he said, there were even moments he was catching himself. Like Riley Pettijohn had changed numbers from 20 to 5. Now he's still going to be limited in not full contact.
Well, that's the real confusing part, is all the guys from last year who changed their numbers.
True, but also the confusing part about the injuries and who's going to be available and not available, because these acclimation practices, you know, Riley Pettijohn was able to line up and actually, you know, be out there and participate with his teammates. Bo Jackson and Isaiah West went through individual drills right over here to my left.
Josh Padilla out here, even though he's not going to Bennett Christian. They're all out here.
All those guys that are going to be limited once you get past spring breaks. It's like, oh, well, you're trying to keep up, but at least you have a rough idea of where they would be in the pecking order, which, again, is very much subject to change. This is the first practice of 15 in spring, and then Ryan Day will be quick to remind us that practice 16 starts in August, and all of this is very much open to change. But when you walk in this building, and even when they're not in full pads, maybe especially when they're not in full pads, this is an incredibly athletic team, like, period.
They look, and it's going to be kind of weird, I think, but I think this might be a more athletic group than last year from 1 through 85, which is insane considering you're losing freak athletes like the Styles brothers.
It's tough. That's tough.
I think that there's actually a higher level. Ryan Day was asked about the different position groups, and thankfully he went through every position group and gave some feedback, except for quarterback. He skipped that altogether, which is interesting.
Well, we'd already talked about Julian.
Yeah, but there's other guys in that room. So that was interesting. Just to say about the overall state of the room, I thought it was interesting. Because obviously there's no depth chart battle, but wouldn't you'd think you'd be like, well, we like we like where we're at.
Yeah, but I think that was the way he was approaching it, because the question, I think, was phrased at where would there be areas of concern? Ohio State is not concerned at quarterback.
Yeah. But when you're talking about the overall position groups and the athleticism, if you look at wide receiver, that's the one that stands out to me the most. It's a group that, while unproven, we had Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith last year lined up, so you're like, oh, whatever happens beyond them is good. We don't really know about Kyle Parker or Devin McEwen or what they're going to be like when the lights are on at Ohio Stadium, which is over there.
Yeah, it's over there.
But when you look at those guys and the way that they moved, the way that they accelerated, Jerquaden Guilford, Chris Henry Jr., Brock Boyd even, there's some dudes there. And I don't want to tell you what,
Devin McEwen is.
I don't mean, and I know this is what we always do, and I'm going to apologize right now to Phillip Bell, to Desi Jones. We're probably not going to talk about them enough, because they're just stuck in the middle between being the starters and being the highly ranked incoming freshmen. But like that group, I look at, I'm like, it might be more athletic, and that's a group that lost Carnell Tate and Mylan Graham, Quincy Porter. So but I think they might be more athletic. Now we'll see about that at other positions. I don't think you're going to lose the Styles brothers and get more athletic. But Christian Allegro sure looked interesting today. Sincere Johnson looked interesting today, and at corner, and this one spot Ryan Day brought up, the more I think about it, I think this might be the deepest Ohio State's been at corner in 10 years, because all the conversation is going to be about Devin Sanchez and whether or not the Buckeyes have what they want opposite him. But the new guys, Dominic Kelly, Cam Calhoun, Jay Timmons, Jordan Thomas, they really changed that entire room. But Jermaine Matthews, I didn't even notice Jermaine Matthews today. Did you?
Yeah, he
I kind of forgot he was on this team. I literally just forgot who was the other corner. Like, and that's how deep they are because
I was a little concerned that you were just going to remove him from the conversation.
Because I'm watching all these other guys. I'm like, oh, that guy's pretty good. Oh, that guy's pretty good. That guy's pretty good.
Jermaine was doing something that we pointed out last year in spring camp where it was like he might get one rep and then not need the next one, skip one. But he was incredibly hands-on as a coach for those younger corners. One, I won't even name who was on the receiving end, was getting like full coaching, verbiage, language, perhaps, to the extreme from Jermaine Matthews, which you know that I love. But so yes, I saw and heard Jermaine. His impact is absolutely going to be felt for this team. That part is going to be fascinating to watch.
Well, he's one of those few guys on this team that's played a lot of football and played a lot of football at Ohio State.
That's why he doesn't need a ton of those reps. And you can make the same case for Kenyatta Jackson as well. But outside of that, everybody else has to really be out there. I think Jalen McClain kind of was pulled back a little bit. I wonder if we'd had more time with Ryan Day. I'm not, he gave half an hour. That was plenty. He looked like he might have also been in that same maybe limited bucket throughout the spring camp. I'm not trying to break news. He wasn't as involved as I thought that he might be. Again, that doesn't matter because he's got a full season as a starter and Ohio State has to figure out the rest of those pieces around him. But I know for sure that I will be talking about Christian Allegro on the Stock Watch on Wednesday on the beat because we had an hour to watch and he made 2 sensational plays in coverage in the red zone. And, we're going to make too much out of that because it's just a limited window into what these Buckeyes are doing. But that's why I always say when we leave day 1 or when we leave on Thursday from day 2, when they don't have the full pads on, you're just looking at the physical changes and the transformation and then the new guys and what they brought in, how quickly that athleticism can be injected into the lineup. That's going to happen. I don't have any question about that.
No, there's a lot. It's an interesting day, as I said, because I think there's going to be 2 storylines that people take out of this afternoon or this morning's practice session. Number 1 is Leroy Roker being the guy that was selected to break down the team at the end of the initial gathering before practice. And if you were taking
on a scale of 1 to 10,
I'd probably say a 7.5, 8. He's in year 3 at Ohio State, but again, he's a guy that was specifically pointed out by Ryan Day as having had a really great offseason.
Bobby brought him up on
Monday at the live show. Maybe it's because, as you said, maybe there's a Jalen McClain. We are speculating. It's not
I'm just saying what I saw.
Yeah, there's no facts based there, but he's a guy who's played a lot of football. Maybe he doesn't need to. Roker might, especially when you're playing them. I think there's obviously an argument to be made that if Jalen and Earl Little and Terry Moore are your starting safeties, that those guys all need to play together as much as possible now, but today's an acclimation day, doesn't matter. And then, of course, the second story is just going to be all the new faces and what the new guys look like, what James Smith, what Quaver Saul looked like, what Christian Allegro looked like, what Dominic Kelly looked like. These are the guys that we're all kind of trying to figure out, so is that guy coming in here to start? Because I saw a completely different personality out of Edric Houston today, and I don't know. This is normally the type did not smile once that I could see. This is one of those normal days when Edric would be the big personality. And we've discussed the last few weeks about whether or not the personality changes that come into the building when guys like James Smith, who are very serious, who's going to be impacted the most. And I think Edric Houston looked physically great. And I'm wondering how much of just knowing that there's these other guys. And all 4 of the freshman defensive tackles looked very impressive just from a physical standpoint, better than I would have expected, especially for Darius McKinley, who really stood out to me, and Emmanuel Ruffin. So those are 2 guys that I don't think got talked about a lot in the transfer or in the recruiting side of things. But I'm like, oh, look at that guy.
Oh, I was going to ask you, because you said you had to refer to the flip card.
Sure.
Who was the first person that made you do a double take and say, who's that? What happened?
It was Darius McKinley. That was the first one. Because his high school ratings, he was a low 4-star, but he was listed in 6'3", 270 range. And if that was 6'3", 270, then I've seen 6'3", 270 look a lot different before. He looked really, really good. And then for me, the other guy was Dominic Kelly. I'm like, I was like, who the heck is that? Why is that corner so long? He really looked good. It's a good group. It's going to be fun to get to know them. It's going to be fun to get to figure out what makes them tick. But, I didn't get to ask Ryan Day a question. I wanted to know if day 1 he saw what he really wanted out of this offseason, which was let's get more explosive. And that's the question I really wanted to know. Did you see that? Ooh. Because I thought I saw it because, ironically, I saw it in the space where Ryan Day said his biggest concern was, which is running back. Because obviously Isaiah West, Bo Jackson, limited. But what we saw out of Turbo Rogers and Legend Bay and Jacoby Jackson, I was like, those three all look different than any Ohio State running back we've seen since J.K. Dobbins, as far as just the combination of size, speed, and bulk.
They also, though, got the most hands-on instruction from their position coach. Because and I completely agree, I echo, when you saw Legend Bay running in space, and they had a one-on-one sort of, not tackle, maybe pursuit drill, I don't know what to call it because you couldn't take him to the ground.
Cat and mouse, whatever.
He was just flying. And the agility, the explosiveness, like, you have not seen a ton of guys like that. Ryan Day himself compared him to Curtis Samuel. Yeah, that sounds about right. But then you would get into like the actual individual drills, and Carlos Loughlin was not having too much problem punching the football out on day one, and they had to do some of the up downs or just jumping up if you were Bo Jackson and Isaiah West. But like, I think that's it. If you think back to the conversation that you have had about the Indiana and primarily the run game explosiveness and efficiency against Miami.
Yeah.
It was not getting to the second level, not making guys miss. I don't think they have doubts about if these guys are athletic enough to do it, but to be a complete back, they know that they have to push these guys really hard. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's not an actual concern. It's just a motivating factor. I don't know, but that group did get a ton of attention from Locke.
Yeah. And it's clear that Carlos Loughlin, of all the position coaches on this team, has the most work cut out for him to get his guys ready, because everyone else, you have replaced a lot of the departed transfers with veterans. That's not really the case for Carlos Loughlin. Yes, Jacoby Jackson's in year 7 of college football.
That dude is rock.
But he's not played a lot of ball. And so other than him as a 7th-year guy, Carlos Loughlin is tasked with replacing 2 second-year running backs with first-year running backs and a second-year running back who didn't play at all for Ohio State and Turbo Rogers. So I think like when you start to do the bingo card of like, okay, which coach has the toughest job this spring?
Yeah.
I think it's clearly Carlos Loughlin. I think he's probably also the most suited to handle it,
yeah,
which is
no doubt
what makes him unique. The conversations heading into spring were like, the running back room has to get itself ready, and day one is you put the ball on the turf, you're going to find out pretty quick if what that leads to. And so
no soft batch cookies.
No soft batch cookies. You know what else? No cookies, period. If you're on Awaken 180, at least for the first 8 weeks. And then you can mix in a cookie because you've learned how to eat smarter, Austin. You've learned how to eat with a better plan. Go to awaken180weightloss.com. Ask for Mandy, my coach. She was great. So when you sign up at awaken180weightloss.com, to lose the weight that I lost 35 pounds in 8 weeks. You see what Austin's done. He's maintained it.
This is not fair to Jen, okay?
It's been great. I don't know Jen, but I know Mandy did a great job for me. Awaken180weightloss.com. Go there, check it out. You won't regret it. Will Ohio State regret what Ryan Day said today? It's saying Philip Daniels is probably not moving from tackle.
Will he regret it? I mean,
does it now spin off into something else? Because the conversation all offseason has been about left tackle. What does Ian Moore do? The conversation we've had in the last couple of days indicates that most people around this building don't think Philip Daniels is the candidate to move. So that means Austin Sareveld is the candidate to move.
Except that he also said Austin is mainly going to be a tackle.
So what does that mean? Are we setting ourselves up for no changes?
I won't be surprised if that's the outcome, to be honest with you. I mean, look, they know that they have a plan B or a plan C in Austin Sareveld. We'll have plenty more time to get into this, and we definitely will throughout spring football. I don't think Austin Sareveld needs to get guard reps. If they have to move him back in...
He did play 2 years there.
In the middle of training camp or in the middle of the season, you can do that. If Ian Moore leaves no doubt whatsoever throughout camp. Now, he was with the twos, and Carter Lowe was as well today. Again, day one, that's probably going to change. I expect it will change and get some rotation opportunities as they move forward. But the cross-training does appear to be primarily limited to Josh Padilla at center and guard. Gabe Van Sickle looks like guard almost only for him. Philip Daniels not going to get work there. You can move Carson Hinsman back and forth between center and guard. Jake Cook, I think, will be working there. It looks like he was with the twos at center for day one. Like, that is still a deep group.
Yep.
And
Again,
guess,
Ryan Day did call it the deepest offensive line group they've had since he's been.
And I think maybe this is just, it's a snap judgment. It's emotions. It's coming off of that first day. Ian Moore is going to have a chance to get better and a chance to compete. Austin Saravild is already a proven college tackle. He also has a chance to get better. He's not done with his development. So I don't know why you would have to go into spring ball and be like, well, you know what? Half of the time at guard, half the time at tackle. He doesn't need that. Yeah. Give him a chance to be an All-American at tackle. You know, if he's a guard at the NFL level, who cares? Right. Like, that's not, I guess.
It's about finding the best 5. And I think that this is as challenging a year to do that. It's weird because it could be pretty easy. But then there's also like, is this the best alignment? Is this the best? And I don't know how you really know that until September 12th in Austin, Texas.
Yeah. And so I'm not surprised that the group that we saw out there was the exact same one that started the game against Miami. It wasn't the one that finished it, but Josh Padilla is also going to be limited from full contact throughout spring. So, we'll see what transpires there. But I guess I understand it, and I expect there's going to be reps that Ian Moore gets with the ones at some point, whether that's left tackle, right tackle, don't know. But Phillip Daniels, I think, is in the same position. He had a full year of starting, and this offensive line was really good throughout 12 out of 14 games. And you've heard me say this before on the beat, I don't think fully to blame for what happened against Miami. Perfect? No. Sure. But to blame, or even against Indiana, no, that's not where I'm at. So I get it.
Did you notice anything else different? Like we've talked before about how we enjoy watching new drills, coaches do stuff. I noticed today, and maybe I just never noticed it before, Ohio State had Carter Lowe working as an up back on punt protection. Have you ever seen them put an offensive lineman there? I've seen Caden Curry do it, but he's a 6'2", 240-pound.
I don't recall that.
And they had, I'd never seen that before. I'm like, that is fascinating.
Robbie Disher, baby.
So, the little things you're like, oh, that's a new philosophy. Now, does it mean anything down the road? I don't know. We saw Kevin Reese, the equipment guy, out there working on the field. Like he was working with the players in the donut hole tackling. It's crazy.
Well, if you're going to be on the field, you're going to earn your keep. That's what we're trying to do every day that we will be in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center with snap judgments. We'll also have a stock watch coming your way on the beat on Wednesday morning. So stay tuned for all that and full coverage throughout spring camp. And really, 365 days a year at 97.1 The Fan on that YouTube channel, 10 TV's YouTube channel, 10 TV Plus. You probably found us on one of those spots, but you can also get the audio-only podcast feed wherever you get those if you need us on the go. Thanks for joining us for some Snappy Jays Day 1. He's Berm. I'm Austin. We'll talk to you tomorrow.